Hi, we're back with another edition of the MPFT Podcast, where we showcase the brilliant work being done by our staff and teams to care and support for our local communities. One of these services is our South Staffordshire mental health support teams, who work within schools to support pupils experiencing mild to moderate or emerging mental health concerns such as low mood, anxiety and worry. The work they do to identify issues early and work with schools to ensure children and young people get the help they need also supports the NHS 10-year plan's key shift from sickness to prevention. For this episode, we are delighted to welcome Mehak, a young advisor linked to the service who spoke with education and mental health practitioners Maria and Chloe about what the mental health support team offers and what young people and their families can expect during initial assessment and intervention, with the aim to increase awareness and knowledge for young people who may access support from the service in future.
Can you tell me a bit more about what MHST is and what it is that you do?
We're a team that is employed by the NHS, however, we are mainly based in schools. So what we do is we work with the young people to support them with their feelings, their thoughts, their emotions. And what we do in our sessions is we teach them strategies just to kind of cope with everyday life. So we might help them to feel more calmer, more confident, less worried. So we also work with the teachers and schools and the people at home, but our main focus is to work with that child or young person to make sure that their well-being is as good as it can be.
What is it that you can support me with then?
We can support with many different things, feeling nervous about things. We can support you with low mood. Perhaps if you are feeling particularly sad for a long period of time and can't seem to get yourself out of that, we can help with that. We can also help with friendship issues and difficult, tricky social situations. There's lots of things that we can help support with. Often we work with sort of stress around exams, being in school. That is something that we do tend to work with quite a lot with our young people.
Will it just be me and you, or will it be like others? Or
what we do is we offer one-to-one, and these are predominantly young people from the ages of 7 to 18. So the sessions are private, and what we use something called guided self-help. So unfortunately we don't have a magic wand, but we're here to give you the tools, the coping strategies to guide you for a better well-being. So they're private, they're a safe space to talk, think and learn those coping strategies, and we think that's really important.
So if my friends have similar problems, can they come too?
We do offer varying different types of sessions. One-to-one sessions, no, your friends wouldn't be able to come. It would just be you and a practitioner and maybe a parent or carer for a couple of the sessions, or even for the initial assessment. But 9 times out of 10, those one-to-one sessions are just you and the practitioner. What we can offer though in terms of groups, we do lots of group work. We do lots of drop-in sessions in our schools where you can just come and have a conversation with a practitioner. But also we do classroom workshops. Classroom workshops are just generalised workshops that we do within the classroom in a school to support all of the young people that are in that classroom. But those are all picked by the school for the need of their young people.
And it's not just young people that we work with. We do recognise that sometimes young people might not be ready to access that kind of support. So what we do is we offer workshops for parents and carers and teachers too, and any kind of members of staff within the school. So that might be topics such as anxiety, low mood, worry, panic, confidence, that kind of behaviour. And we feel like it's probably the best because we can support the people that are in that young person's life all the time to carry on that continued support and be a bit of a role model for the child that they're watching or looking after.
Yeah, and I just wanted to know as well, do you work with all children in Staffordshire? Or
so our teams work in lots of schools in Staffordshire, so that's Cannock, Stafford, Tamworth, Lichfield, Burton and New Toxteth. There is a full list on our website. We're not in 100% of schools just yet, but there is that list. Will tell you which schools we work in.
I know that sometimes you can feel a bit of anxiety as well, so what would you tell children and young people who can be quite worried about talking to MHSTs or people from mental health support teams?
I think that's a really good question. We feel like we would like to kind of break that stigma. And what I would do is I would probably just tell those young people that it's okay not to be okay. Life has its ups, it has its downs, and it's just how we are able to cope with that. So everybody needs support sometimes, no matter who you are, and that's okay. Asking for some support is brave, and it does show strength.
So you mentioned asking for support. How can I get in touch then if I want that support?
You can speak to a teacher in school. You'll also have, in every school that we work in, there will be a mental health lead too. So it's worth going to the mental health lead because they have a direct contact to us and can refer you into us. Speak to your parents or your carers, because ultimately they are the people that are with you all of the time and are there to support you. So speak to them and see what support they can offer you as well. They can also contact us and complete a referral. If you see us around school, any practitioners, any MHST practitioners around school, please come and talk to us. We love having conversations with young people. That's why we do this job. And just really remember that you're never on your own with your feelings. There is always somebody there that can help and support you.
Whether it's something small, whether it's something big, we are, as the MHST, we're here to help you. As we said before, looking after our mind is just as important as looking after our body. Just like if you had a cold, you'd go to a GP. We're here to support you if you feel like you're struggling with your mental health or well-being. So everybody deserves to feel safe, and everybody deserves to feel supported and overall happy.
So what is low intensity CBT? What does it mean?
Low intensity CBT stands for low intensity cognitive behaviour therapy. So it comes under the umbrella of the intervention that we offer. So we offer interventions for low mood, anxiety, worries or phobias.
Yeah, so the low intensity part is because it's a shorter intervention. It is focused on full CBT. We use CBT tools to be able to teach you to be able to help yourself, because that is what CBT is all about. We deliver it in schools. It is designed for mild to moderate mental health difficulties. So it is very low level, which is where the low intensity comes from.
So you mentioned it was a shorter intervention. So is it not loads of sessions then?
We usually can offer the intervention within 6 to 8 sessions. However, sometimes the length of that session may depend. So it could be 45 minutes to an hour. If we're working with a young person that might not like a session being that long, we can shorten it to 30 minutes. We can be really flexible with how it's delivered. Yeah. So we work together in that session to learn strategies and break those unhelpful cycles.
So the main resource that we use is the CBT cycle. So that is thinking about how our thoughts affect our feelings, affect our behaviours, and how they're all linked. And that is the main core of the work that we do.
Just so I can understand it properly, could you give me an example, please?
An example might be if we're looking at a young person presenting with low mood. Let's say they enjoy football. They might think, I'm not going to go to football training tonight. I'm not feeling up for it. I've not got the energy. Feeling quite low. I want to stay at home. So then they might skip training that day and spend more time alone in their bedroom or with their family. When we're looking at that unhelpful cycle, essentially that would make a young person feel worse. It might make them think, what have I missed? Are people going to ask where I was? And being alone with your thoughts might create an unhelpful cycle there. So with low intensity CBT, we slowly help build those activities back into a routine and getting that young person back into doing things that they enjoy doing, for example, football. So we'll get them to test out their thoughts, and overall we hope to boost their mood. And that intervention is something we call behaviour activation.
What about if somebody's anxious or they're worried? How do you approach that?
If someone is feeling anxious, quite nervous about doing something, so for example it could be that they're anxious about answering a question and putting their hand up in class, we will obviously encourage the young person to do that, but we will do that by building on their skill set. We will teach them about how anxiety affects their body and that it's a normal process to go through. We'll teach them grounding techniques, we'll teach them distraction techniques, maybe even breathing techniques to be able to help them feel more confident in understanding what's happening to their body when they're feeling like that. We work on the cycle because again that avoidance cycle will be in play. So if they don't do it then they won't feel that. If they don't put their hand up, they won't feel anxious. So we really try to encourage the young person to be able to use the skills that we're teaching them in our sessions to be able to help themselves literally step by step.
And what we're essentially saying is, when we make these small, manageable changes to our life, it ends up having such a big impact. And overall, when we are looking at these interventions, at the end, the young person essentially starts feeling a lot better, and which is why our interventions are really successful, and it's good
and
for
you
them.
know, this can all feel very scary for the young person, but actually we as practitioners are there with them every step of the way.
So if a young person has their first appointment with the mental health support team, what is it for? What should they expect to see?
So when we first meet with a young person, that's something as practitioners we refer to as initial assessment. So it's essentially a meeting where we kind of get to know a little bit more about the young person, the things that they love, the things that they're finding quite difficult, so that we can utilise that information within the intervention that we complete with them. We talk about how things are going for them and what might be difficult and what we can pinpoint, really.
Yeah. It's really important for us to assess the best way to support that young person, because we pride ourselves at MHST on adapting our interventions following assessment to suit that young person. These are yours as a young person's intervention and sessions. They're not ours, so it's our job to be able to do that. It's really not a test. We're here to help and support. So there's no right or wrong answer in any of this. We do hear that quite a lot in initial assessments. And we really want to help you to make a difference to your well-being. So again, that's our job. That's what we're here for.
I like the way you said there's no right or wrong answer, because that's really helpful to somebody who's new to the services. Will a young person have to talk about everything, or is there certain things that they don't have to share with you?
What we want is the young person to feel comfortable. There's no expectation that they're going to have to lay their life story out. Sometimes from the referral from a school perspective, we kind of get the information on the referral there. We may speak to parents and carers beforehand anyway, to get a bit of background information. So there is no pressure. We want them to take their time and just really share what they are comfortable with, because if a young person doesn't feel safe, they're not going to get the most out of that initial assessment stage, really. It's okay to kind of say, I'm not sure, I don't really want to answer that question. And we get it all the time as practitioners anyway, and that's okay. We need to respect those boundaries.
I know that it might be hard for young people to open up sometimes, and it can be hard to share your feelings and thoughts. So what kind of questions do you usually ask?
We normally do a variety of different questions, which will reflect on sort of the young person's mood, their sleep, their worries, or the things that they're just feeling really overwhelmed by. Sometimes we use short questionnaires. Again, this is not a test. And we feel that's really important to say. None of this is a test. It's all about us being able to have the tools to be able to help you. There aren't any right or wrong answers. We're here just to listen, and there's definitely no judgment. We want to be able to help you, and that's why we do this job. So again, there's no pressure. You come to us, and it does help if you're really open and honest with us, because then we can put a really good formulation together to be able to support you the best we can.
I'm sure to put it together there's a couple of serious or structured questions or methods that you have to use. Are you okay to tell me a bit more about that?
It's really important to talk about that, because we are a mental health service, and therefore we do have to complete a risk assessment with every young person that may have an assessment with us. And the risk assessment is really kind of making sure that the young person is safe. So we may ask a young person if around self-harm, or if they're having thoughts of maybe not wanting to be alive, and their kind of risk questions around risk towards themselves. We also may ask if there's any environment that they don't feel safe in, so that we can ensure that they do feel protected. We might also ask if there's been any kind of substance misuse or alcohol misuse. And again, it's really important to kind of reassure that young person that we have to ask everybody these questions, and we're not doing it to be really nosy, we're doing it to make sure that they're safe.
Ultimately, it is our job as practitioners to make sure that these young people that we are working with, completing assessments with, are safe. And if we were concerned, we would have to talk to adults around that young person, whether that be at school or at home. But what we would say is, and we will come on to confidentiality in a minute, is that we will always make sure that that young person is aware that we are going to have those conversations with the adults around them. We never do anything behind a young person's back.
I know sometimes a lot of people might find it hard to put how they're feeling down into just words. So how do you combat that? What if somebody doesn't know how to explain how they're feeling?
We get that quite a lot. Sometimes the pressure of putting how you're feeling into words can be really difficult for young people. But as Maria said before, we do pride ourselves on adapting for that young person's needs. So sometimes we might have really arty young people, so we might get them to draw what they're feelings. We've had a lot of young people, particularly in primary schools, draw their worry monsters, and we can kind of unpick it. And once they've named it, it's a bit easier for them to tame it. So we just feel that that's really important. We also use scales as well. So it might be when we're having a check-in, we might ask them to rate their mood 1 to 10, and that might give us a better indicator of where they're at and what is their normal. Young people don't really have to have all the answers at that assessment point, and we'll do our best to try and adapt for them and their needs.
It's nice to know that you're willing to adapt and use drawing and stuff, because on days where you don't want to open up, you have that as an option. Do you keep everything private, or is it shared?
What we say stays in the room. However, if we feel that a young person isn't safe, or they've disclosed something to us that does need the support of adults around them, whoever that may be, we will have to break that confidentiality. But like I said, we would never ever do that without the young person knowing that we're going to do that. They will always be informed, even if they're not overly happy about that. It is our job to make sure that you're safe.
It can be helpful having that support with you too, of somebody that you know. So is it okay to bring a parent or carer if I feel that I need that?
We always ask the young person before completing an initial assessment, do you want a parent or carer there for all of it, some of it? Some young people don't want them there for none of it, because they feel like that is their private space and that's their time to kind of let things off their chest. We are aware that a lot of young people might struggle to have a parent or carer there because essentially they don't want to worry them. So we do whatever the young person wants and whatever they feel comfortable with.
What happens after the assessment? What are the next steps?
So as practitioners, we don't make clinical decisions on whether we're going to work with a young person on our own. So yes, you will see one of us for the one-to-one assessment, but actually we don't then there and then make that decision. We have a clinical meeting each week to be able to discuss whether that young person is right for our service, and actually put together a bit of a plan of the type of work that we could do with that young person. This is called a post-assessment meeting.
So following the post-assessment meeting, the child and the parents and carers will receive a letter for next steps. It might be that young person was ideal for low-intensity CBT, and therefore we would offer those intervention sessions. So in that letter, they'd have their first session appointment. Or it might be the fact that another service would have been appropriate for them. So for example, if it was highlighted that there was a bereavement and that was what was triggering their low mood or worry, we would therefore signpost to a specialist bereavement service, because it's always really important that that young person gets the right care at the right time.
I think it's just important to add in there that we will never ever make or leave a young person wondering whether we're going to work with them or not. We do try to make those clinical decisions quite quickly, and book in appointments as quick as our diary allows us. You will always be kept informed of what's going on next.
Yeah, just coming to talk takes that courage, doesn't it?
It does, and those first steps for that initial assessment really can make a real difference.
I think it's such a relief as well, just hearing that the children and young people are at the heart of what you do, and that we're kind of we do everything with you along the way, and that we're always informed of everything. So after the assessment, what happens in the first few sessions?
During the first session, we create something called a care plan. So it's to make sure that the practitioner and the young person are all on the same page, and we're essentially all singing from the same hymn sheet, and we know what that young person wants to work on in intervention, because we feel that they are going to buy into the intervention if they're working on something that they want to, and that's really important.
And also, when as practitioners we've completed that initial assessment, we already have a really good idea of what the young person is struggling with, and we've made that formulation ready so we can also as practitioners help support that care plan.
I know that you mentioned care plan. How do you do a care plan? What is it? What does it consist of?
So we look at lots of different areas within that young person's life. So we may look at school, we may look at home, we may look at friendships, we may look at the community, and kind of unpick where those difficulties show the most, really. So what we do is sometimes, in order to adapt and make it a little bit easier for that young person to engage, we may use something called a conversation cards. So it's a very visual tool that we can use in order for the young person, if they're finding it quite difficult to complete, they might want to use red, amber, green, red being not so good, green being really good, and to place those cards in the right area of how they're feeling. And we find that actually the care plan cards work so well with communication, in order to kind of look at every area of their life and kind of identify what's the biggest problem and what they want to be better.
Yeah, I think during that care planning process also we get the young person to set a SMART goal, or sometimes it's a couple of goals. These are really helpful and often are behavioural based. So for example, I want to feel less anxious as a goal is really quite vague, but actually adding something in there that they would like to start doing again, that they perhaps they've stopped doing because they're feeling so anxious, makes that goal SMART. It makes it that we've got something to achieve as well, and something really to work towards. Part of the care plan, we also look at who can support you. So who have you got around you that is able to support you? So who it is and how you would like them to support you, because different people in your life will support you in different ways. We also look at what are your strengths and what are your challenges, and this is really good for us to know as practitioners, because we know actually they're really good. Perhaps one of their strengths is art, and they're really good and they're really creative. We can include that into our sessions. We also often use more of the communication cards called Make It Happen. The Make It Happen cards, they're also really helpful because it gives a really good idea of it gives you an example basically of what it is that you would like to do to be able to help yourself achieve that goal.
If I'm somebody that doesn't like writing things down, or that just doesn't work for me, what is it that you can do to help me?
Our main goal is to make things really accessible for that young person. So as we've said before, it may be the fact that they would want to draw their goals, or draw what they would like to be different, or what their ideal scenario would be. I've written out plenty of care plans for young people, because maybe they might struggle with their writing, their fine motor skills, it might make their hands hurt. So I am always more than happy, and as all the practitioners are, to complete a care plan on behalf of a young person. It's just whatever feels comfortable for them.
Ultimately, the care plan is the young person's care plan. It is theirs. They take it away. Yes, we do have a copy of it to keep, so that we know what we're working towards, but ultimately that care plan that they have created is theirs. It's something that we refer to in every session. We will use it as a bit of a check-in at the beginning of each session, and also it's a really good way of tracking progress, because actually as we reassess that goal, is what we're doing working? So it's a really good way of tracking that as well.
You mentioned that it's, well, my or our care plan. Do you share it with anybody else, or is that something I can keep for myself?
So we get the care plan. As part of that, that's something, a piece of paper with all the information that we've discussed, all the information we've agreed on for you to take home. However, following doing that piece of that record, that piece of work, we will always ask, who would you like it to be shared with? So that might be parents, it might be carers, it might be adults at home, older siblings, friends, it might be teachers, support staff, and whatever that young person would like is where we would share it. Essentially, we do encourage a young person to share it with at least somebody, because when we're looking at that care plan throughout sessions, it gives them somebody at home or somebody at school to discuss with, and they can kind of check in on them and see how they're getting on with that, because we will only see them short term once a week, so we want to make sure that there's a buy-in from someone in their life.
I think it's also really important to remember that support looks very different for everybody, and there will be different people in different young people's lives that they feel that they have around them to support them, and we recognise that, and we also encourage the young people to recognise it. Some young people don't like to share it with lots of different people, but have a close group, or just one or two people that they're happy to be shared it with. But it's really important for the adults around the young people to know about the care plan, because that is then they can then help them to achieve those goals.
In terms of adults, knowing how to be supportive, because I think having that support at home is just as important. What about any parents or carers that are listening? What would you recommend that they keep in mind to help?
So if they're supporting a young person with a care plan in place, and they've recognised that they would like their care plan to be shared with them, I think it's really important to just make sure that you're aware of the care plan, you're checking in with them, and you're kind of making sure with their goals, wherever you are, do you feel like that's something I can support with? As practitioners, we find that when an adult in that young person's life is aware of what their overall goal is, they can support them in so many different ways that we hadn't even taken into consideration. So we feel like it's just that buy-in's really important, and for them to be aware of that.
The most important thing is that your young person feels ready and motivated for support, and they're willing to give things a go. Practitioners will guide both parents, carers, and the young person as much as they can, but there has to be that motivation there to work towards these goals on the care plan.
So would you say the care plan is like a map for everybody to follow?
Absolutely. It helps the young person, their family, the practitioner that will be working with the young person to all work together and to support them to reach their overall wellbeing goal.
It just helps us as practitioners to put the right resources together to be able to support that young person. But also, we are here to help and support. But like I said before, that motivation and that needs to be there for the young person to be able to succeed in achieving their goals.
That makes sense, and it sounds like the care plan keeps things really nice, focused and clear, so it's a bit of structure to follow as well. Thank you. It's been really nice to have all of my questions answered, and it's cleared things up a bit for me now. It's been really reassuring.
Oh, thank you.
That's what we're here for. Thanks, Mehak.
Our thanks to Maria and Chloe for joining us, and special thanks to Mehak for leading this episode. You can watch the MPFT podcast by going to our YouTube channel. Check out the show notes for the link. If you prefer to listen, then please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts by searching for the MPFT podcast, where you'll find all our episodes. Thanks for joining us. See you next time. Bye-bye.